Very happy to meet you in optics and electricity. In the introductory session of electrostatics, we are going to see about inverse square law. An inverse square law is characteristic of anything that spreads out in straight lines without getting lost. So science in general and physics in particular deals about cause and effect relationship. There are two types of relationship. One is direct relationship, the other is the inverse relationship. That is, if one quantity increases, the measurable quantity other decreases. This is what we are going to see. Consider a source. Let the source can be a light or a sound, and it spreads out in straight lines. So you can see that if the distance increases, what happens? The intensity decreases. And this can be very well explained by the fable butter gun by Professor Eric Rogers. So he explains like this. Suppose a restaurant has the problem of buttering toast. They want to be very modern and do toast buttering with a machine. The restaurant owner invents a butter gun with melted butter in the handle, which can be squirted out in straight lines of butter. Here is a piece of toast, and the lines of butter go out and hit it all over. Now, instead of one toast, the butter lines might go on, and you can put the toast farther back at twice the distance. Two pieces of toast wide and two toes high. Altogether, four pieces of toast to intercept the butter. The butter will be as quarter as thick. So, this is inverse square law of buttering. Extending the idea at triple the distance, you can arrange 3 toes by 3 toes to fit within the spray lines for 9 total toes, and you get 1 by 9th thickness of butter for economy treatment. So the conclusion is the thickness of the batter is inversely proportional to the distance of the toast. That is, as the distance increases, the thickness of the butter decreases. So this is the inverse relationship. The same can be applicable in Coulomb's law as well as in Newton's law of gravitation. This Coulomb's law was given by Auguste Coulomb. According to him, consider 2-point charges, namely Q1 and Q2. They are separated by a distance r. So what holds these two charges? Yes, there is a force. So this force depends upon the presence of two charges, Q1 and Q2. So they are direct relationship. So they are directly proportional. And there is an inverse relationship, that is distance, inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So both can be combined together, and we can write force is directly proportional to Q1 Q2 by r square. Now you can replace the proportionality symbol by a constant c, and this c is nothing but 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Here epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. So we have written the Coulomb's law. F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by r square. So let me denote this epsilon naught in yellow color. Now this epsilon naught is nothing but permittivity of free space, and the value of this permittivity is 8.854 into 10 power minus 12. The unit is farad meter inverse. Now this 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, as these all quantities we know, we can just substitute, and you can find in the calculator the answer is 9 into 10 power 9. Now this can be substituted in the force expression of Coulomb's law. that 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. In this place of it, we can substitute 9 into 10 power 9 q1 q2 by r square. The unit of force you already know, it is Newton, or either you can write in small form. And the unit of charge is, do you remember? The unit of charge is Coulomb. Suppose if I consider both the charges with same charge of 1 coulomb and the distance of separation as 1 meter, then the force can be written as 9 into 10 power 9, 1 into 1 divided by 1 square, which is equal to 9 into 10 power 9 Newton. So this is the force value for if the two charges are of same charge and the distance of separation is 1 meter square. The force between the two charges can be either attractive or repulsive. The example we have taken is two different charges, so they are attractive force. When does we get repulsive force and when does we get attractive force? If we have the same type of charges, that is positive charges when it is brought near positive charge, and what happens when we bring a negative charge to a positive charge. The same concept can be thinked over like this: negative charge with negative charge with the positive charge. So we have already studied that like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. Next we are going to define electric dipole. So what is dipole? As the name suggests, di means two. That is, two equal and opposite charges separated by a distance is called a dipole. So I have marked plus q and minus q and the distance of separation is 2d. So p is equal to q into 2d. So this is the expression for dipole. The unit of dipole is coulomb meter. So coulomb is the unit for charge and meter is the unit for the distance of separation. The next definition which we are going to see is about lines of force. What are these lines of force? How they emerge? Let me consider a positive charge and a negative charge. In positive charge, the lines can be marked like this in all direction, suggesting that the charges can move in all direction. And I have marked the arrows outward, that is, it mentions that the positive charges acts as a source and where the lines of force emanates or originates. Whereas the negative charges, I'll mark the same lines of force in all direction. Now you can see that the arrows are pointed towards, which indicates that these negative charges acts as a sink and where the lines of force ends here. So lines of force start from the positive and ends in the negative. Next I am going to take another situation where I am going to take two positive charges. So the lines of force, what happens? They actually originate. So let me mark the different lines of force in all directions. And what happens to the lines of force when two like charges are placed nearer to each other? Already we have seen that like charges repel each other. How does these lines of force support this repulsive nature? See how the lines of force doesn't sink to the another like charges, whereas they move, they repel, they move apart. The same lines of force can also be mentioned in negative charges also. Now see the illustration. Here I am just marking the lines of force. What happens to the lines of force in negative charges? They move toward the negative charge. Now what happens? These lines of force will repel each other because they are similar kind of charges. They are like charges. Whether the arrows will move upward? No. The arrows will move inward towards the negative charge. So this is how we have to mark. So the arrows should point towards the negative charge. So we have marked the lines of force for a point charge of positive and negative, then two like charges. So like charges repel each other. This is how the lines of force support the concept of repulsive force. So I have just marked LOF in order to write in a short form. Now we'll take unlike charges. Consider a positive point charge and a negative point charge. Let them be closer together. Now what happens to the lines of force? We already know if two unlike charges are placed nearer to each other, there will be attractive force. So I am just marking all the lines of force pointing in all direction. For unlike charges, we'll take the 2 point charges, positive and the negative. Because of the attractive nature, the lines of force starts from the positive and end in the negative. So this is the lines of force between two opposite charges. See how you get a curvy lines, and also there are some lines on the left and right side. So this is the lines of force description or illustration when two unlike charges are placed nearer to each other. So this says the concept of the attractive force. Hope this illustration is very clear to you. So once again we are marking SS, that is source and sink. Source is related to the positive charge and sink related to the negative charge. So here you get the attraction or attractive force. So these lines of force never intersect each other. Actually they start normally from the charges. When you draw a tangent to the lines of force, you get the direction of the electric field. So hope the illustration between two opposite charges are very clear to you. So how to get the direction of the electric field? You can just draw a tangent. Next we'll move to the next concept. So this is about, so before getting into the concept, so let me draw a plain sheet of surface. So I have taken a plain sheet. So I have marked some lines. So these are nothing but the lines of force. What happens? These lines of force are passing through the plane sheet. They are passing normally through the plane sheet. So these are lines of force. So these lines of force passing through a surface in a particular area is termed as electric flux. So the electric flux is nothing but number of lines crossing per unit area. The symbol is phi. You put a circle and put a straight line, that is called as phi. So this is electric flux. So number of lines crossing per unit area is nothing but the electric flux. This electric flux, the symbol which is denoted is phi. So lines of force per area. So flux can also be written as electric field and area. So from the flux, you can describe this flux in terms of electric field and the area. So this electric flux helps to determine the Gauss law. Let me consider a surface and I am going to mark a differential area, very small area, and I am going to mark a point, central point. For this differential element of area, there is a surface vector and an electric vector. So consider that there are some charges in the surface. So if it is point charges, positive charges, then the lines of force will move outward. So let the area considered to be S and the differential area which is considered inside this S as ds. So ds is a vector quantity, and this vector notation, it always acts normal to the surface. So now I am going to mark the electric field. The angle between the surface vector, that is area vector ds, and electric field vector can be denoted by theta. So this gives the electric flux. So electric flux is now the average normal electric field vector and the area. You can say like this, it's a product of average normal of the electric field and the area. So since I have considered a differential area, now the electric flux can also be written as differential electric flux. So d phi e is equal to E vector dot ds vector. We have taken scalar dot product. So in lower classes we would have seen A vector dot B vector is equal to modulus of A and modulus of B into cos theta. So theta is the angle between the two vectors. A vector dot B vector is equal to A vector modulus into B vector modulus into cos theta, that is AB cos theta. The same case is applicable for electric flux also. D phi E is equal to E vector dot ds vector. It is a scalar dot product of two vectors. So E ds cos theta, this was the previous equation we derived. Suppose if I want to calculate the electric flux of the entire surface, the electric flux through the entire surface, then what I should do? I have to integrate. So integral d phi e is equal to integral E ds cos theta. I have removed E vector outside. Area is the differentiable quantity, so it is taken inside. So E vector you get outside, and the integral of ds gives you the entire surface. So this is the electric flux through the entire surface. So this is a scalar quantity, and the unit of this electric flux will be Newton meter square Coulomb inverse or volt meter. This electric flux is the basis for Gauss law. So the next concept will be Gauss law and its proof and its application. We'll meet in the next session. Till then, this is Dr. M.S. Revati from CARE. Thank you.